This is the Jama Masjid in New Delhi. It's a classic example of Indian engineering, architecture, and design skills. This mosque was built in the 1600s. Nowadays, India's considerable skills in engineering and design are being used for a different kind of architecture, computer software, as India plays a leading role in a growing trend toward low-cost, offshore software development. Today, we take a look at software from India on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte magazine, and BIX, the Byte Information Exchange. In print and online, Byte and BIX serve computer professionals worldwide with detailed information on new hardware, software, and technologies.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is Gary Kildall. Gary, this is Instaplan, a project management software package. Very highly rated, considered very powerful, and very inexpensive. You can buy the basic package for $99. What's interesting about Instaplan, and you wouldn't find it out by reading the documentation or the package, is that it wasn't produced in this country. It was produced in the third world in India. What seems to be happening is not only are the hardware guys going abroad to make their PC clones in Asia, but now the software guys are going abroad to develop software. Why?
Well, obviously, every good engineering department wants a software guru, right?
And they found the gurus in India. Okay. What's the real answer?
Okay. Well, it's obviously based in economics. Good, experienced software engineers are very scarce and very expensive here in the United States. Yeah. And, you know, you just can't, in many cases, you just can't find them. Now, we get into a situation here where we're selling software for $99. Means the engineering cost has to be very low in order to make profits. And that's one reason, of course, we go abroad. Now, another is that the whole process of engineering software has become much better understood than it was, say, 10 years ago. So we can, in a sense, export that technology and get groups of people together to produce things like Instaplan.
Yeah. Gary, we're going to focus on the international export software business, particularly in India. India seems to be leading the pack among the third world countries doing this kind of thing. One of the reasons may be the already existing network of many Indian nationals ensconced in the American computer business. We begin with a report on that from Wendy Woods.
Farouk Arjani came to America to do postgraduate work in California. The son of a school principal, Arjani was well tutored in the sciences and math, so a career in technology came naturally. Today, he is president of DocuPro, a maker of high-end electronic publishing software. He credits the Indian Reverence for Learning and excellent schools, known as Indian Institutes of Technology, for the abundance of Indian high-tech professionals.
Level of teaching is very, very outstanding in those schools, and it graduates students who are really well grounded in the sciences and in technology. And these are the people then who come to America by and large, who want to go and take a more advanced degree in America. Because let's face it, I think the U.S. is still the holy grail of technology, and so they want to come here and participate in that. And I think when they come here, they're overwhelmed with the opportunities.
Modern India often seems to be bursting at the seams with impatience, impatient to move forward and desperate to move up. A country that knows its abilities and is striving to make them known to the world. Burdened with a population over 3 times as large as the United States, with diverse languages and religions, India faces monumental challenges, socially and economically. To an outsider, the idea of an India brimming with advanced technology may seem difficult to reconcile with the clash of street life, where automobiles share the road with ox carts, and snake charmers are still more common than satellite dishes. Extremes of wealth and poverty are easy to find. In Bombay, glistening skyscrapers share the beachfront with decrepit shacks. But the dazzling contrast between ancient and modern is a routine part of life in India, just another challenge on the route to development. According to some, the country's new role in software development is partly due to an ancient tradition of logical analysis.
You will also find that logic finds its roots in Indian culture and Indian civilization. There's a lot of reasoning. So if you look at the manner in which education was built in the earlier years in India, the concept of one student and one teacher, it was a whole lot of philosophy and a whole lot of reasoning and logic. So I think somewhere at the back of things is that foundation of knowledge built on reasoning, of exploring.
India's new stature as an offshore center for software came about slowly, but it's picked up tremendous speed in the last 5 years. The government's liberalized computer and software policy of 1984, combined with a growing reputation overseas, made the Indian computer industry a choice prospect for joint ventures and high-tech developers. The burgeoning software industry here in India has led to a concentration of computer companies in the south of the country in the city of Bangalore. It's the fastest growing city in India. The Indians like to think of this as their own sort of Silicon Valley, though it might just as well be called Joint Venture Valley, since software development deals are under discussion with a host of major American computer companies, such as Prime, Sun, and Apollo, Hewlett-Packard, Texas Instruments, Unisys, Digital Equipment, Ashton Tate, and Microsoft. Not unlike California's own Silicon Valley, Bangalore's high-tech firms seem to breed more of the same. India's Space Center is located here, along with a sizable portion of the aerospace industry. In the center of town is the lush campus of the Indian Institute of Sciences, where research in parallel processing and superconductivity goes on inside, while a more basic kind of labor continues outside. Texas Instruments was the first American company to establish a fully owned software subsidiary here in a modern office building, complete with its own satellite dish. But other American firms were quick to follow. Digital Equipment Corporation, already the major presence in India since a hasty departure by IBM, recently spawned a new company called Digital Equipment India. Some of DEC India's projects include network operating systems, database managers, compilers, and designing VLSI, or very large-scale integrated circuits. The company decided there were several good reasons to expand in India.
Well, there's a tremendous cost advantage. As you know, the cost of Indian manpower is significantly less than what it is in the States. In terms of Digital's likes and dislikes, we found over the years, in the last couple of years, that they have supported us extremely well. The brain power is here, the technical talent is here.
The numbers that I'm giving you probably are about 3 years old when we did the feasibility report. But we felt that the cost of doing such work in Massachusetts was close to about $50 an hour, while we were able to contract with Hindetron for the same work at about $15 an hour.
Lower development cost is a compelling attraction for any competitive business, especially in the computer software field, but the complexity of software development requires more than just cheap overhead. It calls for a sustainable level of quality, which is maintained in turn by good programmers and engineers.
Once we were over the training period and logistics, the logistics and the communications between the two places, once we established those links, we felt that the quality that we were getting out of our export unit here in near Bombay was equal to what we were getting in Massachusetts. In fact, I would even comment the documentation was in some way was better because it was a lot more detailed.
DEC's new joint partnership conforms to the Indian government's new model for joint ventures, restricting foreign ownership to 40%. And it is the first such minority ownership deal ever for Digital. Across town, a well-established Indian computer firm called PSI continues quietly to build up its American customer base, which it started to develop in the early 1970s. PSI's founder, University of California graduate, looks with favor upon the new invasion of foreign computer companies.
I think it's a great thing for us because it's going to drive technology. It's going to make our people, it's going to hone their skills, further. It's going to keep us in touch with the state of the art. And I really welcome this kind of influence.
PSI's big partner is Bull Computer of France, recently merged with Honeywell. But their software projects span the globe. PSI has developed software for Western Union, Harris, and Whirlpool in the United States. A Japanese company hired them to write a bilingual Japanese and English word processor. And in another project for Japan, they created a Unix lookalike called Unix. PSI's founder recognizes that while the Indian software industry has made great strides, it takes more than technology to gain a foothold in the Western markets.
Our weakness is that we do not have a marketing reach within the US. We have to necessarily, today at least, depend on being able to convince a set of customers that we may meet, a set of potential customers that we may meet somewhere or the other, or if they hear from some of our other customers. Hopefully that will also change in the future so that we can make our abilities, our credibility known to many more companies.
Bangalore is also home to Wipro Systems and Wipro Information Technology. Wipro, which stands for Western Indian Products, got its start selling vegetable oils. Today, Wipro Information Technology is India's second largest computer company, specializing in board design. The company raised eyebrows at the recent Fall Comdex show, where it was one of only 3 companies in the world to unveil a high-speed 386 motherboard. Wipro surprised many industry people also with one of the first 386 multi-bus machines.
We were, and in fact Intel were the people to tell us this. They said we were the first in the world to do this outside of the US, and the 5th company in the world to be able to do this altogether. On the multibus 2, I'd say they're saying that we are amongst the earliest in the world to be doing it. Now, I wouldn't know whether we are the first in the world, or certainly I think what we're going to be able to do, we've already delivered systems.
Most of Wipro's software has focused on the PC, but the company is expanding now to other platforms like the Macintosh and the workstations of American-based Sun Microsystems.
We have a capability which is very unique and very valuable in the States, and we are defining that as the product development capability. So we are forming alliances on a product-by-product basis with various US firms that have the clout and the capability and the access to these distribution channels, and acting as an extension of their R&D capability. An example of that is our product Instaplan, where a company called Instaplan USA, which is a US corporation, markets our product in the US. And in fact, a month or so ago, PC Week rated it as the 2nd best project management software package in the world.
Wipro's newest projects include SoftLAN, a software-based local area network, and Multi-DOS to make the PC-AT into a multi-user system. As with other Indian vendors, Wipro had doubts about advertising the Made in India part of their product.
Very candidly, to some extent, there was some hesitation early on in saying that this product was developed in India, because we were worried that there would be a built-in resistance to buying something from a less developed country, okay, which does not really have a great name in computers. But now that is becoming less of an issue because that product is now firmly established in the US marketplace. In fact, just as an aside, my alma mater, Harvard Business School, is now using it in their MBA program. So our initial approach was indeed, very honestly, to downplay the Indian content. But now we are becoming pretty aggressive and vocal.
The recent surge in India's computer exports is at least partly due to the Indian government's concerted effort to ease foreign trade laws and to attract foreign investment. In the nation's capital, New Delhi, government agencies are using some traditional and some not-so-traditional means to hasten the arrival of high technology.
We are quite convinced that electronics and other high technology areas are going to provide us a vehicle to speed up the development process and then catch up with the world, if I may use that word. I don't see any way to do it by conventional, traditional way we were developing our economy. And we really would not like to left behind. And more important than that, amongst India's recognized strengths are the accessibility to talented people.
In the United States, we're used to high-tech company names like AT&T and IT&T, but here in India, the big technology company is ET&T, the Electronics Trade and Technology Development Corporation. It's a government agency designed to act as a catalyst to help bring India's high-tech products to market, both domestically and for export. Over the last 3 years, India's domestic electronics industry has been growing at a phenomenal 35% per year. The Department of Electronics wants to maintain that growth and spur exports, which are expected to top $1 billion by 1995.
You see, we have realized and growingly realized that for development of electronics in the country, we would essentially need to import, and we must continue to import. And it is simply not possible for any country in the world today to be self-reliant in that sense. Now, only question before a country like India relates to that if the growth of electronics is going to need considerable amount of foreign exchange resources, then we must also have exports out of electronics. And we see a great possibility of doing so, both in area of computer software as well as, I would say, in the area of hardware also.
To help technology find its way into Indian life, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi took the unusual step of creating a special government position called the Technology Advisor, a position that requires perseverance and patience.
The problem is much more complex in terms of social interaction, value system, political interference, bureaucracy, you name it. But at the same time, there is a lot of potential. You got a lot of talent, and there is a lot to do. So as I came in the system, I learned, because I had lost a lot of time. I listened to people, and I sort of felt that the key to making a break here is not technology, is really teamwork and creating new work environment.
Sam Petroda made his fortune in the United States, but decided to return to India to help break down the old hierarchies with some American business methods. He soon found that the problems began in his own office.
When the boss goes to some office or somebody's workplace, they all stand up. It's a normal routine. So in early days when I moved here, we had only one phone. So every time somebody called me, I'll go into the office next door, and all these girls will stand up. So I kept telling them, I said, look, you don't have to get up when I come, because I get 10 phone calls a day. Why should you stand up and then remain in standing position until the call is done? If I'm on phone call for half an hour, they'll stand for half an hour. So I kept telling them, and it didn't make any sense to them, because they thought I was just kidding. I still like their standing up, because that's respect. So one day I collected all my courage, and I just went into this office, grabbed one girl by both shoulders and said, you sit. And she was all shaken up. I look also a little more frightening compared to others. So she realized that the guy gets mad. Word got out that he really doesn't like when you stand up. These are the kinds of issues we had to deal with.
India's bid to become a major player in the world of high technology faces other obstacles as well, mostly due to the rudimentary infrastructure of the country, only now beginning to improve. In particular, communication by telephone can be exasperating.
It's a very serious problem for us, but we've compensated for it in the facility. We've got uninterrupted power supply, full generating systems. Communications problems are more a problem internal than they are external. Communications through external to the United States is relatively good. It's more difficult to make a phone call from this location to the hotel than it is to make a phone call from here back to our home office.
To overcome the communications problem, many new joint ventures have turned to satellite links. Texas Instruments, DEC, and Citicorp own or lease satellite dishes, permitting them direct 24-hour data transfer and electronic mail, bringing the office in Bangalore into the office next door. While India's telecommunications facilities may lag behind the rest of the world, its expertise in one area of the computer business is quite possibly second to none. Several Indian companies and schools have become experts in Unix, an operating system which is now attracting renewed interest in the United States. The growth of Unix as a standard was driven largely by the pullout of IBM after a dispute with the government. Many Indian professionals now view IBM's departure in 1978 as a stroke of good luck.
On the whole, the departure of IBM has been good for the country. IBM was a giant, and possibly it's stifled development. You know, IBM used to sell so aggressively that it used to shut out others from the market. The whole computer scene changed dramatically after IBM's departure. Not only CMC, but many other companies have come up. Even manufacturing companies have come up. Partly it could also be due to the fact that the microprocessor came in after that. But to a certain extent, yes, IBM's departure led to the opening up of the market.
Now, in India, Unix is the #1 priority. Unlike the US or Europe, where it's an important subject, it's becoming more important. But people also use Unix. Here, everything is built around Unix. So I can see that we may be getting advantage because of the work that our people are doing with Unix.
India's expertise in Unix has given its local vendors a head start on new hardware implementations. Hindustan Computers Limited, or HCL, is India's largest computer company. Of their 3,400 employees, 70% are engineers.
We decided to back Unix. It was a risk we took in 1985. We put 100 engineers behind Unix in 1985. I think you can see some of the results come out in the last 2 years. Today we are the biggest Unix house in India. Unix is the standard, and our Unix minis, or super micros, whatever you call them, are actually the largest selling by far in the Indian marketplace. In fact, we've put together a commercial toolkit in the mini area that I don't think is equal even in the US. We are talking to companies like Sun and Apollo to port it on their machines for sale in the US.
HCL's latest machine is the Magnum, a multiprocessor super mini computer running Unix System 5 version 3. The Magnum can handle multiple motherboards and has found a niche market in the United States. AT&T has acknowledged the company's leading role in Unix development.
We knew the 030 was coming out. We are a source licensee on Unix, so we have the source. So we simulated the chip, developed a board, ported the software on it, on this simulated board, and waited for the chip. We didn't know we were the first. In fact, the AT&T people came in and said, you know something, you're probably the first guys to show this in an exhibition. No one's really talked about it. And that's the time we looked at it and said, hey, you know, if we'd really thought of it earlier, we could have made these boards and sold them out in the US. People would have bought them because this was the window of opportunity.
HCL's jump on the competition is not entirely the result of its faith in Unix. Like many other Indian computer vendors, HCL has access to a large pool of locally educated programmers and engineers, claimed to be the second largest number of college-educated personnel in the world. That's it for part one of our look at third world software. On part two, we'll see how Indian software solved the problems of one of the world's largest train systems. We'll look at India's competition, and we'll show you the high-tech side of Bombay. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Stuart Chaffee. In the random access file this week, Intel has demonstrated its new 32-bit chipset implementing the Extended Industry Standard Architecture, or EISA as it's known. The Intel chipset allows users to add 32-bit high-performance boards to existing 8 or 16-bit standard AT slots. Intel also has another chipset that is compatible with IBM's microchannel architecture. Advanced Logic Research has entered the 486 computer game by announcing a new low-cost AT clone that is upgradable by replacing the 286 CPU with a 486 chip. The basic ALR machine, called the PowerFlex Model 40, will sell for under $1,500. The 486 chip upgrade will cost around $3,000. So for about $4,500, ALR is offering a relatively low-cost 25 megahertz 486 computer. Apple says it's developing its own new PostScript clone, a proprietary font scaling and page description language for use in the future Macintosh system software and Apple laser printers. Apple is therefore selling its share of Adobe Systems, which had been providing Apple with PostScript. There are reports that Apple is stopping production on the Mac 2 to focus exclusively on the new Mac 2CX. Sales of the 2CX with more speed and a smaller footprint have been far ahead of the older Mac 2. Hewlett-Packard has introduced a new inkjet printer for the Macintosh. It is a modified version of the HP DeskJet printer designed for low-volume users looking for laser-like quality. The HP printer is quick-draw compatible, retail price $11.95. The Open Software Foundation is sponsoring a major study on the use of Unix. The one-year study will look at the use of open systems technology, user requirements, and customer attitudes. The Santa Cruz operation has released the newest version of Unix for the PC called SCO Unix System 5386, Release 3.2. SCO is no longer calling its product Xenix. AT&T has finally agreed to license SCO to use the Unix name. The new SCO Unix will support 486 systems and either the ESA or MCA bus. The National Education Association has called for a computer for every teacher by 1991. The NEA says there is no way for students to get adequate computer training if teachers are not given the appropriate computer tools. Researchers at Purdue University have developed a computer program for students that teaches the youngsters about the dangers of drugs and alcohol abuse. The software includes video games designed for students in grades 4 through 10. Free copies of the program can be requested by contacting Purdue. Finally, Lotus has announced the winners of this year's prize for innovative 1-2-3 applications. In the corporate category, the winner was Brand Neiman of the Environmental Protection Agency for a 1-2-3 spreadsheet that predicts acid rain pollution. The winner in the commercial category was Stephen Wexler, who developed an entire music production management system using Symphony. Winners get $500 contributed to the charity of their choice. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next week.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte magazine, and Bix, the Byte Information Exchange. In print and online, Byte and Bix serve computer professionals worldwide with detailed information on new hardware, software, and technologies.
For a transcript of this week's Computer Chronicles, send $4 to PTV Publications, Post Office Box 701, Kent, Ohio 44240. Please indicate program date.